100 teams to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. Today, we are moving on to the Iowa State Cyclones, a team last year that probably by many would be considered to, in terms of just raw, pure talent, probably have the most talented roster in franchise history, or I guess I should say in program history last season, and it didn't go so well, or it didn't go up to expectation. A lot of people thought this was a team that was going to be a player in the college football playoff, and it didn't turn out that way yet. This was still a solid season for the Iowa State Cyclones. So, can the Cyclones reload and retool in 2022? Or is this going to be a year where the Cyclones take a step back and maybe have a rebuilding year under Matt Campbell? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite teams. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And especially to Iowa State fans in this video, you guys are going to know this team a lot better than me. So if you feel like I missed something, want to add something, anything of the sort, leave that in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to read through them. So let's talk about Iowa State in 2022. They're my 7th ranked team in the Big 12 coming into the 2022 college football season. And again, last year this was the team that was probably the most talented in history, at least definitely on the offensive side of the ball. And well, it didn't really go as planned, right? They were 7-5 in the regular season. However, did finish 4th in the Big 12 standings with a 5-4 record in conference, and then ended up losing their bowl game to the Clemson Tigers. So definitely a team that is definitely going to feel like some talent was wasted here, and that talent was wasted, and that now it's gone. So maybe more of a retool, reload type year for this team. But let's go through some stats, because this offense, while again, a lot of people, especially Iowa State fans out there, are going to feel like maybe last season was a letdown. Last year's statistics were pretty good. 424.5 yards per game with around 31 points per game. And on the defensive end, they were solid as well. They were actually second in the Big Ten in terms of yards per game allowed, with 310 and around 20.5 points per game allowed as well, which I believe is top half of the Big 12, the third best mark in that regard. So this was definitely a team that had also seen one of the better defenses that this team has seen in recent history as well. But now we got to talk about some of the talent that it is losing, because when you look at some of the talent that is leaving this offensive room, you can kind of see why it was one of the best offenses in program history last year. I apologize if you hear dogs barking. They're going kind of crazy. So quarterback Brock Purdy is gone. He had 3,188 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions with a 71% completion percentage, and that's a huge loss. They're going to be trying to find a new quarterback, but they may have already found it. Talk about him a little bit later. Running back Breece Hall, who has just had some tremendous seasons in an Iowa State uniform last year with 1,472 yards and 20 touchdowns for Breece Hall last year. He is gone. He is off to the NFL as well. So, a couple wide receivers gone as well. Tariq Milton is gone off this team, as is Joseph Skates. He is also gone. But the two most notable losses out of this receiving group are the two tight ends, Charlie Kolar and Chase Allen. The best tight end duo in the entire country is gone. So Kolar, 756 yards, 6 touchdowns, and Allen, 284 yards and 2 touchdowns last year, so you're losing both of those guys' production there as well. On the defensive end, you still do lose some pretty key pieces. Mike Rose and Jake Hummel were your 2 leading tacklers last year, so you definitely lose those guys. Also, Greg Eisworth, who was your 3rd leading tackler last year, is gone. Also had 2 picks last year. Other guys like Alec Horn, Isheem Young, Craig McDonald, they're gone as well as the defensive lineman. I'm going to butcher this name, so I apologize, but Ayoma Owazuruki. I promise you that's not how you pronounce the name, but he had 9 sacks last year, which I believe was 2nd on the team. Yes, 2nd on the team, only behind the guy that is coming back that we'll talk about later. So definitely some talent leaving this defensive side as well, and it might be a little bit of a rebuilding year for Iowa State. They're going to break in a new quarterback in Hunter Deckers. So Deckers had some limited playing time last year, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And from what I can remember seeing about Deckers, he looked pretty solid. So we'll see how he fits in with the Iowa State system as the full-time starter next year. But they also have another running back in that room, Jarrell Brock, who again got limited playing time, but when you play behind Breece Hall, you're going to do that. 174 yards and a touchdown for him last year. He figures to be that next guy up for Iowa State. You do return leading wide receivers Xavier Hutchinson, 987 yards and 5 touchdowns last year, along with guys like Sean Shaw, Greg Gaines, and that tight end duo will probably end up being some combination of Jared Russ, Easton Dean, among some other names there as well. Defensively, you do return your sack leader in Will McDonald, had 11 and a half of them last year. You also return guys like Isaiah Lee, MJ Anderson, Colby Reeder's a transfer over from Delaware, Orion Vance coming back as well, Anthony Johnson, Bo Frailer, and Trayvon Howard is a freshman coming into this team as well. So definitely a lot of talent still on this Iowa State team. But you figure maybe a year for Iowa State to try to get back into the swing of things. But let's take a look at their schedule now. Here is that schedule for the Iowa State Cyclones. When you look at the non-conference play, Southeast Missouri is on there. Should have no problem there. Also, you got a home game against Ohio, a Bobcats team that was not very good last year. And then, of course, the Cy-Hawk Trophy game, this time on the road against Iowa. And last year, probably might have been Iowa State's best shot to beat that Iowa Hawkeyes team in quite some time. But we'll talk more about that matchup here in a little bit. Maybe this is also a year that Iowa State can beat them. Who knows? When you look at the conference play, home games, you're going to see against Baylor, Kansas State, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Texas Tech. And games on the road going to be against Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma State, and TCU. So without further ado, kind of breaking down these games a little bit. First, the Cy-Hawk battle. The other two non-conference games just not really interesting to me. So when you look at the Cy-Hawk battle here between Iowa State and Iowa, I think this is definitely going to be a very intriguing matchup because Iowa still have no idea who's going to start at the quarterback position, whether it's Spencer Petras or Alex Padilla. Quarterback play has got to get better for Iowa to be back where they were last year, but definitely feels like it's not going to be as talented of an Iowa team that was shown on the football field last season. And this is an Iowa State team that, while they are going to be kind of reloading and maybe need a season to get back into the swing of things, this is definitely an Iowa State team that has some good young pieces as well as some experienced guys there as well to help out on both sides of the football. So this is definitely going to be a very intriguing matchup this year for the Cy-Hawk battle for 2022. On the road in Kinnick, I'm going to favor the Iowa Hawkeyes. But Iowa State, I think, can go in there and I think Iowa State can go into Kinnick and put up a fight. When you look at the conference play, home games against Baylor, Kansas State, West Virginia, Oklahoma, those are all games that you got to watch out for because those are all teams that I feel like are going to be pretty solid this year, and they can go right on ahead. I do think Iowa State is going to be able to win at least 2, maybe 3 of those games at home. But again, the game against Oklahoma I think is going to be tough. You got to go on the road to play Texas and Oklahoma State. Texas, Oklahoma, technically back-to-back games, but not back-to-back weeks because you got the bye week squeezed right in there between those 2 games, which good news for Baylor. And then even finishing out on the road against TCU, that's not going to be an easy way to finish out the schedule either. And even the game on the road against Kansas, this is a Kansas team that is going to be a lot more talented than it usually is. It's a Kansas team a lot of people can just sit at the bottom of the Big 12 and then move on with their lives. But not this year. This is the Kansas team that can compete, and that's going to be a little tricky to play in 2022. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do more percentage-based outlook. Tell me predict a team's record. So here you go. Here are percentages. Red means you're probably not winning the game. Orange means you're still probably not going to win, but it's college football. And hey, upsets can happen. Games in yellow are your 50-50 or upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but watch out for team on the other side of the ball. And then games in green are games that you're good to win. So 2 games in green, 1 game in yellow-green. Again, the 2 non-conference games that don't really interest me, they're in green. And then the game on the road against Kansas. I think that's a place where Iowa State absolutely can trip up. Just look at that Kansas roster. They have a lot of very talented for Kansas. A lot of very talented transfers coming in to that program. Watch out for Kansas on the road. I think that is an upset game right there. When you look at games at home, though, again, you get Kansas State at home, you get Oklahoma at home. It's a program that has had pretty good success with beating Oklahoma in the past couple of seasons. Pulled off a couple upsets against the Sooners, have the Cyclones. So Oklahoma's got to watch out for that, because that's another place where, yeah, Iowa State can get upset this year, but they can also pull off some upsets of their own in 2022. But looking around the schedule for the Iowa State Cyclones, again, Baylor's going to figure to be pretty well this year. Kansas State's going to figure to be pretty solid this year. Texas on the road. Normally that game probably will be in yellow, but Texas just added way too much to not improve. I mean, they added way too much talent for them to not get better. So Texas on the road, going to be a tricky game for Iowa State. Oklahoma State on the road. Yeah, you lose defensive coordinator Jim Knowles to Ohio State, but you are still returning back a lot of good talent offensively, defensively, all around the football. And then watch out, because Texas Tech, if they get that offense rolling this year, they can be really good. West Virginia, if all the pieces fall in place, they can be pretty good. TCU as well. A lot of people are high on that team. But all in all, for the Iowa State Cyclones, I do think this is going to be a rebuilding year. However, I still think the Cyclones have enough talent to where they will get into a bowl game. I really do think the Cyclones will get into a bowl game here. But this is a rebuilding year, and this is a year where you're going to have some struggles, I think, and I think you're going to lose some games, like the game against Kansas up here, that you're not really supposed to. But I think Iowa State maybe pulls out a win or two that they're not supposed to as well, and I think eventually at the end of the season finds their way into a bowl game. That record projection being anywhere from, I think, 5-7 to 8-4, because again, if the pieces fall in place and these young guys perform really, really well, then this is an Iowa State team that can maybe pass that rebuilding year and get into a solid bowl game, maybe be a bit of some contenders in the Big 12 Conference. But I definitely think, in my opinion, this is kind of a rebuild and reload year for the Iowa State Cyclones. So that is my preview prediction for the Cyclones in 2022. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, anything like that. And remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.